Ever feel like life is a constant juggling act? Wake up, fill the coffee cup, tackle the morning chaos, then dive headfirst into work, pouring every ounce of energy into our goals, projects, tasks. But in the relentless pursuit of success, are we sacrificing more than we realize? We find ourselves caught in an unsustainable cycle, struggling to balance work and life, trying to maintain happiness amidst all this chaos. It's a familiar tale, one where the pressures of work can take a toll on our relationships, our well-being, and ultimately, our careers. According to a Deloitte survey, a staggering 77% of respondents said that they've experienced burnout, with stress and frustration impacting their work negatively. But what's even more telling is that 81% say burnout has a detrimental effect on their personal relationships. And here's the kicker. 67% believe that having a passion for their work doesn't make them immune to burnout. It's a sobering reality that begs the question, how does burnout lead to career failure? Welcome everyone to another episode of Chronicles of Failure. I'm Kim Selbany, and joining me as always is my insightful co-host, Seth Terbeek. Today, we're delving into a topic that hits close to home for many of us, burnout. Specifically, we'll be chronicling the story of one individual whose journey through burnout, looking back, could have been somewhat prevented. Joining us today is Christian Jakenfeld, founder of CS4F, or Customer Success for Founders, where he's dedicated to directly supporting SaaS B2B founders and implementing customer success strategies within their businesses. He leverages his vast experience from scaling customer success at Tessian and PlanHat in years prior, and he brings valuable insights to assist these companies in their own growth journeys. He wasn't always founder, though, and when met with signs of burnout earlier in his career, he failed. He failed to see the signs of burnout, and well, you can guess how that goes from there. So listen with us as we explore the intersection of burnout, success, and the human experience.
Christian, you want to give a bit of a quick intro about your background and how you got where you are today?
Yeah, sure thing. Where to start? I got super bitten by the kind of startup bug back at college, and then from then kind of set up my own thing, but then also was kind of early stage employee at a few different companies before eventually ending up at a company called Tessian. I joined kind of at the seed stage, and then was there through. So joined the CS team and was there through Series A from Excel, Series B from Sequoia. 170 employees, I think, by the time I moved on. And I've just done that whole journey again with PlanHat, which is a customer success platform.
Awesome, man. Well, we're super excited to have you here and excited to jump into our Chronicles of Failure here. So, when you reflect over your career as you just did, and you think about the pivotal moments, where do you think you got the biggest jump ahead in your career?
It's an interesting one. So it's actually off the back of the failure, which is quite interesting, which is always nice as well when you reflect. So kind of starting at the end and working backwards, when I left Tessian, which we'll get on to, I actually took like a year. It was COVID. So it was also like, okay, I don't want to live in my box apartment in North London. How am I going to do things slightly differently? And I read and listened to and watched and devoured everything possible about customer success, which is what then led me to joining PlanHat, which then kind of put a huge jump forward in my career because I then just spent 3 years talking nonstop to people in CS. So actually what gave me a huge jump forward was a failure, and then spending some time just really focusing on what I enjoy, and that opened up a lot of doors.
That's amazing. So, as we're going through our podcast here with the title Chronicles of Failure, how about you jump into the failure and kind of talk us through, what that was, what you learned from it, and kind of how you leverage that to move your career forward.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I had such a fantastic time at Tessian, but it's kind of bookmarked by two failures, which is quite fun. So actually, even the reason I joined was because the tech company I was at before missed the Series A round, so just had to make half of the company redundant. So I wasn't initially looking. That happened, and I still remember being brought into the room with like 4 or 5 other colleagues. And I remember the CEO saying, look, we're going to have to let people go. And I was like, I remember in my head being like, I get why like I'm here, like sales isn't growing quickly, but why are these 2 other people here? Not realizing that it was a more people were being let go than I understood until about 10 minutes after we left the room. So, I mean, that was, of course, like a failure. Because of that, then went looking, ended up finding Tessia, which was called Check Recipient at the time, joined, and then, within a few months, we'd raised our Series A. So I went from leaving a company because we couldn't raise our Series A to joining another company that within 2 months did raise the Series A. So crazy occurrence. And then the failure at Tessian was just burning out. And I think kind of reflecting back, I didn't do a good enough job of kind of flagging like, hey, this is too much. And I think it was kind of a mix of maybe pride, but also sometimes, expecting the others around you to notice for you and just not doing a good enough job of putting my hand up and going, this is unsustainable. Like, how do we handle this?
So what drives people to burn out like this? It feels obvious to simply draw formal boundaries around work and call it a day, right? Wrong. As we mentioned, burnout is prevalent. But what causes it? Several theories exist today around the cause, and many link it to past work experiences and personality traits. Hello, overachiever. But nobody has settled on one single reason that one person might face burnout in the same role as someone who doesn't. For Christian, it was a little more complicated. He found both external and internal factors led him to where he found himself, and that burning out actually, it led to even worse burnout and worse habits.
So it's with burnout, I always think like you got to look at the external and the internal, right? So the external that led to it for me was I was managing a finance vertical, customers across Europe, but then we were a London-based company that was expanding into America, and I was managing all of our US customers, which was awesome fun. But then we were starting to sign more and more customers from California, and that is a very different time zone to London. So it was just starting to be, at 6 p.m. UK time when I was meant to be winding down, I had 10 customers that were saying, hey, do you have time to connect now? And just the number of hours I was needing to cover were too much. Tessian was amazing because it had a really high caliber for people that would get hired, but it meant it took a bit longer. And I think I didn't push hard enough to say, hey, like, I need some help here, because I knew, no, we're trying to hire, that person will come eventually. And I held on for too long. Now that's the external, but then the internal, I think, at least for me, and maybe I'm just not good at, I don't know how to put this. I feel like when you're not burnt out yet, but you're going down that path, often you end up then doing worse habits. Like, you need to lean in when you're not feeling at your best. Okay, how do I get healthier? How do I control what I can? And I don't think I did that.
Some of the causes that Christian faced are typical, and we likely all can relate to an extent. According to Mayo Clinic, causes of burnout may include a lack of control, i.e., not having a say in how you do your job, or like Christian, not having the resources to do your work. Another few are lack of role clarity and expectations, lack of support from your personal network, and, of course, problems with work-life balance, the old boundary draw hypothesis. Sometimes you just have nothing left for your family and friends when the work is done, which, consequently, can lead to social network decrease, lack of support, and, a spiral. To Christian's point, once the spiral is initiated, the momentum tends to draw us down even further, which is why spotting signs early and making adjustments is crucial. Mayo Clinic references several questions that someone can ask themselves to determine if they're facing this non-medical diagnosis. Do you question the value of your work? Do you feel removed from the people that you work with? Do you lack energy to do your job well? Have your sleep habits changed? Do you get headaches, stomach issues, physical complaints without a known cause? It's safe to assume that many of us answer yes to one or more of these. How do we move past it if, in fact, we are able to spot the warning signs?
I was like, okay, if I'm going to have to work more, I need to get some more sleep. And it's so easy to say that, and it needs to only be for a short time. but I have to take some responsibility here and say, like, I didn't handle it as well as I could, not just in raising it, but in treating your body like an athlete and focusing on how do I bring my best every day.
Yeah, so that kind of cliche of burning the candle at both ends, it's really easy to do that. So I think, that's a really important lesson to learn, right? If you're going to go all in at work and really try to kill it there, you've got, with the extra and work and hours and so forth, really requires a lot of, self-control to make sure that you're not just, pouring everything out of both ends there.
And it's even if you're burning the candle at both ends, even if you're burning it slowly, it's still like this. It was just a bit unsustainable. I'm not saying like it was a party lifestyle, but I think I needed to be. It was a tough time. It was lasting longer than expected. I probably needed to be just keep life as simple as possible, get through it, and it was going to get easier. But I just couldn't hold on for long enough, and that was both external and internal.
Makes all sense. So, based on that experience, what kind of advice would you give to someone who's in that situation right now about how to, work through that?
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, one is, of course, like control what you can control, because with all of this, there's the internal and external, like I said. But equally, it's, raise your hand and be super clear about the assistance that you need. It's that classic thing as well, come with a plan somewhat. So if you do need help, say why you need help, where you need the help, and what you think would make the biggest change. My personal belief as well is kind of ask for more help than actually may be necessary, but so that then it can be scaled back, instead of asking for some help and then it being implemented and then realizing actually it's still not enough, and then a bit more, it's still not enough. You're better off saying, hey, I think we need to chop off all of this and then we can add some back, instead of going the other way.
That's a good one. That's really good. With your own experience now that you're a little bit removed from that, have you been able to change your approach to other situations where that might be occurring?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's anyone out there who's kind of been through burnout or some variation, like it's much easier to spot the second time. You know the pattern much more. So yeah, definitely. Like it, in my career since, I've never reached that stage again, because I've been much better at saying, hey, this is unsustainable, or taking myself out of a situation where I'm like, I know where this ends up.
Good stuff. Okay, so if you had to summarize your failure or boil it down to a few sentences, what would you say that is?
I think the failure was not asking for help early enough and clearly enough, and then also not doing as much as I could have personally to make it sustainable too. And I don't know whether that would just made it sustainable for longer, but maybe longer would have been long enough. There's a concept I've learned, which I really like, which is so it's a little bit of a silly metaphor, but I think it's perfect. Which is when you clean a window, right? You clean on one side up and down, and on the other side left and right. And the reason being, it means that you can tell which side the smudge is on if it's still dirty. And I think that's a really important way to look at a situation. Yes, there's some things you're responsible for. There's some that the other side are responsible for, but you need to be able to tell kind of on which side of the glass is the smudge. And on in this instance, I think it was both, and it's been helpful for me to look back and go, okay, I could have done more on my side, just like they could have done more on theirs.
That makes a lot of sense. That's really cool. I like that analogy too. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, Kim, any other questions you wanted to pose to Christian?
No, I mean, so the window analogy is really good. I think that's actually it's applicable to me, and I'm sure a ton of people, so that's helpful. I guess one thing I'm curious about, now you're a founder, which, for a lot of people is like burnout central. What are you doing now to avoid the past mistake, and how are you, planning to stay, somewhat sane and healthy.
Yeah, and this is it's a good one because we all have our quirks, right? And one of my, I'd certainly put it as like issues. I love exercise. I like being healthy, right? But I always got annoyed when I was doing it in order to be able to work more. So I'm working hard. I need to make sure I exercise as well. I always was like, kind of have this feeling of, well, hang on, like I'm working so hard in this job. I then also need to go do exercise so that I can do this job. Like when do I get time for me? And that's obviously, it's not a good way to think about it. It's just the way my brain worked. Whereas building my own thing is for me. Going and doing exercise is for me. Like, so it actually is much easier. And maybe I've just got a brain that works more in that way. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But I find it much easier because I'm in control of everything I can be in control of in this instance. And maybe, as it scales with employees, it may not continue that way, and it's something we're going to have to work on. But switching off when it's my own project, I actually find easier than when I'm working on someone else's.
So, taking a play out of Christian's playbook, perhaps it's time to review the reasons we're working out, to make better efforts, to do it for the right reasons. Or maybe it's something else that you do to fuel your daily routine that has become more of a chore than an escape. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach here, but recognizing the signs before they're out of control is key. And our lesson learned for today, I saw the burnout sign. As we wrap up today's conversation, I want to extend a sincere thank you to our guest, Christian Jakenfeld, for his candidness in sharing his journey and the valuable lessons learned from his experience with burnout. Christian's story hits close to home for many of us, proof that even the most driven leaders can feel the burnout of life's crazy pace. But here's what's truly awesome. He's sharing his journey and wisdom with us today. It's a testament to his strength and ability to bounce back, giving hope to anyone facing similar struggles. Let's learn from his journey, prioritize self-care, spot the signs of burnout, and take steps to protect our well-being. Remember, it's totally okay to slow down. Put your health first and ask for help when you need it. Big thanks to Christian for reminding us to find balance and stay true to ourselves. And to all of our Chronicle of Failure listeners, keep the conversation going. We're here to support each other now as we grow, both personally and professionally. So take care, everyone, and remember to be kind to yourselves. And also, you can now find our growing podcast on social media at Chronicles of Failure. Be sure to follow for show and guest updates and behind-the-scenes footage of all of your favorite leader interviews. Thank you.